Today we're breaking down Roger Clemens' throwing mechanics. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Max Wardell, overheadathletics.com. We've made a few videos in the past. We've taken a brief look at Aroldis Chapman's throwing mechanics and Nolan Ryan's in a little bit more depth. And today we're going to look at Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens has some of the most elite level mechanics, some of the best movement of anybody that you'll watch. So we're going to look at a few different angles here. The first thing that we'll look at is this side view. Now, one interesting thing about Roger Clemens' throwing mechanics is if you look at the lead leg hip, and this is when he's a little bit earlier in his career here, it's actually lower than the back hip. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but watch what he does, and this is one of the things that makes him elite, is he lifts the front side of that pelvis up. So he takes the front side and lifts it up, that loads that rear leg glute as he rotates away from the target and hinges into this back hip. Now, he doesn't access a huge degree of range of motion. He accesses a fair amount of range of motion, but he does so with good stability through the throw, and we can watch that from some other angles. Now, Roger Clemens takes the ball a little bit away from his body here, but watch what he does. He's going to flex and bring it back in. We call that approximation during acceleration. So when you want to accelerate and spin faster, you bring things in towards the center of your rotation. That allows you to rotate faster, and it also allows you to protect your elbow. So I want you to take note here. Look at the height of his elbow. It's about shoulder height, and the ball is in close to his center of rotation. That minimizes the amount of torque proximally, meaning the amount of torque at the shoulder, and really the amount of torque at the elbow too, but it also places him in a more advantageous position. You also take a note here that he's slightly pronated. So as he starts to come through, the ball's slightly turned away from his body. That's why we can see the white of the ball right there. He's also into a really nice, what we call hip lock position, where that front foot, if you watch it, that front foot is going to come down and strike the ground from above. So he goes out, the foot comes straight down. That maximizes your stability when you hit the floor. So if the foot were to come and slide into the floor, what would happen is that increases the reliance that you have on friction, meaning stop. And if you're on a slippery surface, it doesn't work as well. Or if the mound isn't in as good of shape, it doesn't work as well. But it doesn't allow you to maximally transport energy back up through that front leg to allow that chest to shoot forward, which is what his does. So he brings the ball in close, his arm is at a proper height, and then he rotates, the ball stays in close, and then that timing of when his elbow comes out and around is as he reaches peak velocity. So he reaches peak rotational velocity, then the ball comes out after he reaches peak rotational velocity. And what I mean by the ball coming out is he reaches peak rotational velocity of his trunk, then the ball comes out and around to that release point. And that's what elite throwers do. And the whole time he's stabilized through this front leg, and then he's going to decelerate with great hamstring flexibility. So let's just take a brief look at it from a couple different angles here. Now, I found this video on the internet, and I love it because it kind of demonstrates what we were talking about earlier. This is from different games, different outings in his career, and you'll see that he's relatively consistent throughout. And that doesn't mean that he throws the exact same way every time, but rather what it means is some of the general movements he does stay pretty consistent. So he's a guy that starts really extended. Look at the top right image here. So he starts extended, not loaded into that hip. Then what he does is as he comes forward, he loads into that glute, and now he flexes and hinges. That ball comes in nicely here. You can see how flexed he is. He's still loaded through that hip where that front side of the pelvis is higher than the back side. And then what he does is he comes through the throw, unloading that glute. All that energy transfers up the kinetic chain into his arm. Keeping your arm at the proper height allows you to protect your shoulder. And there's that good view from the degree of elbow flexion. And his chest is already open to the target here. So his chest is, almost facing the target, and the ball is still in. Then it comes out and around. So these guys that we see where they're drifting that elbow out and around too early, that's a key risk factor for arm drag and actually slowing you down as well. The other thing we'll notice with this throw that we like to see, and like I said, this is an exceptional throw. The other thing we notice with this throw that we love to see is that he doesn't get too deep. There's often an infatuation with getting behind you, so pulling back, and Roger Clemens doesn't really do that. He stays in good alignment. And some of the research that we've come across recently has shown that throwing athletes, professional pitchers that are elite, usually get about 10 degrees behind their body with the elbow, and then they release about 15 degrees in front of their body. So about 25 degrees of motion that they move through, some a little more, some a little less. Roger Clemens is just about at that range. So if you look at his release, his elbow is actually slightly in front of his chest, and early in the throw, let's go back, he's in a slight bit of retraction here through that arm, but he's not really too far. I mean, you can see he's rotated away from the target and he still gets back there a little bit. So nothing too crazy as far as extreme ranges of motion of the joints, but it allows him to access that, you know, elite level layback position that he accesses that's highly correlated to velocity. So it's all about how you transfer energy and the timing of when things happen relative to one another, and that's what we have to look at with all of our throwers. So if you guys are new to the channel, hit subscribe. If you're interested in getting your throwing mechanics analyzed by myself or one of my team, drop us a comment, or even better, because we don't see every single comment, shoot us an email and we'll make sure to get to that, overheadathletics@gmail.com. Otherwise, we're gonna see you guys in the next video. Drop any suggestions for videos in the comment section below, or hit us up at our email address and we'll try to get to any of you guys' comments or video suggestions. See you guys.